what's up guys? Welcome to another POV test drive. It's a sunny day up here in San Jose on the usual road. This is Robert here, and this is his 2014 Subaru BRZ. Do you want to say a few things about the car first?
Sure. I got the car about in January, beginning of January. So coming from the S2000, I originally wanted to supercharge it just because I do really enjoy cars. I've driven cars with much more power, GTR, some M5s, that sort of nature, but in terms of just canyon carving, I want a light balanced car. Too much power really ruins it. However, both the S2000 and the BRZ have something of a low torque band at the low end that I wanted to flesh out. So both the S2000 and the BRZ, supercharging it really just makes that balance a lot more fun.
Coming from an S2000, what made you want to make the move to a Subaru BRZ? Because obviously, you know, the BRZ has less power. It's about the same weight. It's a little bit of a slower car overall, even though it has a lot of the same front engine, rear wheel drive dynamics. So why did you make that move?
When I wanted to go and upgrade my S2000, the cost wasn't really there when you can get so much more out of a brand new car and also have it supercharged.
So when you bought the car, it already had the Jackson Racing Supercharger on it.
Right, yeah, so that made it a no-brainer where it already had 280-ish horse, they say.
At the crank?
At the crank, but it's torquey and it really is a light car. So in terms of butt dyno, I'd say it's 340 in terms of the fun factor.
Okay, I have reviewed a completely stock 2013 BRZ before. Found it to be a great car, but I just wish the engine had a little more character, a little more power. And then, of course, a few months ago, I reviewed a supercharged Scion FRS, which is essentially the same car as this one. Also had the Jackson Racing Supercharger, but that one was on flex fuel, and at the time, it was running pretty much entirely E85. So it was making well over 300 at the crank. The caveat there was it was on stock Prius tires, so it really couldn't make use of that power. So today we're reviewing a car that's kind of in between a stock BRZ and that E85 full, 350-ish horsepower one. And this one has a proper coilover setup. You have what, RCE
Tarmac 2s.
Tarmac 2s and Michelin Pilot Super Sports all around, 245s.
Yeah, the same tire I ran on my S2000.
Okay.
Good balanced tire.
So this is the first time I'll be driving a car with the Pilot Super Sports, and I know a lot of people, including Matt Farah, rave about these tires, so I'm really anxious to see how they do. So without further ado, let's take this car for a drive and see how it does. All right, so this is the third time I've driven this car before, this car being a BRZ or FRS. Obviously, driving position's excellent, great visibility out the front, very low hood, very low seating position, and everything just falls to hand really nicely.
That being said, as someone a little taller, the S2000, I was at the limits of it. Yeah, and
okay.
This has plenty of room.
The problem with the S2000 mainly, I think, was the headroom, right?
Headroom and legroom.
And legroom.
With the quote-unquote 2+2, seating, you have
it helps, yeah,
some room to recline or move back.
So in terms of the ride, at low speed, it's pretty tame, not too bumpy or anything. I think these RCE coilovers are pretty highly rated for this car, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty de facto choice.
How much do these go for on the market? Just
about
new?
$2,000.
$2,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And do they have independent rebound and
the rebound?
damping?
Yeah. The dampener and rebound can be adjusted independently.
Yeah, so that's pretty nice. You have the stock headers, right?
Correct.
So they're equal length headers, and all you really have on here in terms of sound is the catback exhaust, which is a parent, right?
Yes, a parent 3-inch performance catback.
Okay. So in terms of the sound at low RPMs, it's very, very mild. I can barely even tell it's modified at all. There's no drone at all.
I did want to get rid of the stock mutedness, but I did not want to have a low drone
Yeah.
between drives.
The one I drove last time, the FRS, it had unequal length headers and a pretty aggressive exhaust setup, and it droned quite a lot. And it did make that really nice boxer rumble when you got on the power. But when you were just driving around town and on the highway, it was a bit too much. So is this car your daily driver, or is this your weekend car?
It's my weekend car, although lately I've been itching to drive the stick shift. My daily is a automatic, so it's always good to get
What is your daily?
control. I have a IS350 F Sport 2016.
Oh, very nice. Very comfortable and plush, I imagine.
Comfortable and plush, but actually they've done a really nice job with the driving dynamics this time around.
Okay. The throttle response, when I drove the stock BRZ, I quite liked it. It was very linear, very easy to modulate. But with this one, I feel like below 3,000 revs, maybe because of the supercharger and the tune that's been put on it, it does have a bit of a jerkiness to it. So it's hard to explain, but sometimes if I give it a little bit of throttle input, it'll rev up higher, and then sometimes it'll take a little longer to rev up. So it's not very consistent. But that being said, I've only driven this car for about 10 minutes.
Very touchy, I should say.
That's the right word, yeah, touchy. It's not. It doesn't feel like a 1-to-1 ratio between the amount of pressure you apply to the pedal versus how much the throttle opens up, I guess. So with the Jackson Racing Supercharger kit, is there just an out-of-the-box tune, or did the previous owner have to take it to a custom tuner?
There's a few out-of-the-box tunes that you can get. And the nice thing, well, it's a mixed bag, right? We live in California where there's carb restrictions, but the Jackson Racing kit has a carb-legal tune out of the box.
Okay.
So that's what you're running right now.
Got it. So what are the different modes that we can put in here? So VSC Sport.
Yes.
What does that give me?
So it will give you a little bit of slide. The traction control is actually really interesting how they set it up. The best way to describe it is it will let you slide for a certain amount of time.
A certain amount of slip angle.
I would say a certain amount of time, because it'll slip. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's the actual dynamics, but the way it really applies is it'll let you slide for a little bit, and then it just bangs on hard.
Got it.
And with it full off, it'll just
It's all you in the car.
Yeah. But with it on all the way, it'll let you slip a little bit and then come right back.
Okay.
So sport's originally where I rock it.
So let's keep that on here and take it for a quick run and see how this 280 horsepower feels. Yeah, I can feel it letting me slip a little bit.
Yeah, with the suspension in its tightest setting here, I'll notice the traction light going off while you get
Yeah. It does feel quite tail happy actually, and the limits aren't really that high, so you can really play with it just barely on the edge. I'm not pushing it to even 8/10, but even at 7/10, you can feel that progressive grip just slightly going away. Yeah, so I really like these tires. I can't believe I'm saying that. They're not necessarily super grippy. I mean, the Advan Neova 8008R tires I had on my S2000, the same 245 all-around setup, that was a lot more grippy, but they didn't communicate the way that these do. So I feel the advantage of having these super sports, in my opinion, is not for grip, outright grip, although they do have pretty good grip, but they just communicate everything. You can just feel through the wheel exactly what the tires are doing. That's something I haven't felt on really high-end other summer tires before. I think this car, you found a good balance in terms of grip and power. I always like to say, for a really fun canyon carver, you want about 10 pounds of curb weight per 1 horsepower. So 2,800 pounds, 280 horsepower is just about right.
Yeah, I think you can really spoil the balance if you go too high for a Canadian car. I mean, I want to be able to drive near my limit and be comfortable there.
And I think with the stock setup, stock engine, stock tires, that's also a very balanced car because yes, it doesn't have much power, but it also doesn't have much grip. So you still maintain a good balance of being able to play with the car at the limit. And I think this car with the Super Sports and 280 horsepower, you've maintained that balance. So props to the previous owner too for setting the power up that way.
Yeah, Super Sports, this car and on the S2000, they let go very linearly, so you can dial it back at any point that you need to.
I'm having a little bit of mixed feelings about this particular coilover setup, these RCEs. While I do think that it does stiffen up the overall weight transfer, it is a little bit bumpy at the same time. I don't know, I might just have to get used to it, but it's not, when I'm cornering hard, it feels a little bit on edge, I want to say. That could also be due to the Super Sports just communicating everything through the wheel. Maybe it's like kind of like an information overload that I'm getting that's making me feel more nervous. What do you think? Is it a little bouncy for daily driving, or is it pretty good?
That they need. Right now it's on the tightest setting. I think it needs to be dialed back a little bit because the back will get light, and that's just the physics of it. The wheels, I can't move, can't meet the road,
right?
And that's counterintuitive for what we're doing here.
In terms of braking, stock brakes with just Ferodo pads, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Which pads were they? The 2500?
Yeah, DS 2500.
Okay. Is that more of a? I'm not familiar with those pads. Is that more of a track compound or daily drivable?
Exactly. Track compound, but drawn the stock rotors. So we'll see how they fade, how they last.
They have decent initial bite, but they don't. I feel like they don't grab quite as hard as the Hawk HP Plus pads. I haven't tried those pads on a BRZ, but I've had them on the S2000 and my NSX, and those have a bit more initial bite, but they also have a lot of squeal.
Yeah, I've had Hawks on my VR4 and my buddy on his S2000, and we can hear him coming a block away.
Yeah, it does get pretty aggravating, but that aside, those pads, I really like them for street use. Yeah, see, like right around 2,000 to 3,000, I just gave it constant throttle pressure, and the revs were kind of going like revving up and down. I don't know if that's the tune or what, but that might be worth checking out.
I don't get it when I plant it. I wonder also a little bit if it's the tightness of the suspension making it hard to actually feather it.
Yeah, I mean, when I drove the car flat out earlier, it was fine. It's just when I try to give it partial throttle that it becomes kind of a problem. Why are you stopping in the middle of the road?
Oh my God.
Are you serious? California drivers, I tell you. Yeah, so what are your future plans for this car? I know you've barely had it a few months, but you know, are you just gonna have this as your weekend track car for a while?
I have a couple track days I've lined up, and I want to see how the suspension handles and see if I can dial that in. I may get some more aero, depending on, I want to figure out where the limits of the car are, so I can actually appreciate any changes I make.
Absolutely.
And I may do some tuning, but beyond that, I think it'll stay very similar. Probably different seats. That's about it. The seats are comfortable, but as a tall person, I kind of like to have some more lumbar support, which work cars will do.
Yeah, you make a good point on the whole like getting used to the limits before you add aero. I see sometimes a lot of people at the track, like even in the beginning or lower intermediate groups, already have a ton of aero in their car, but they're also not that fast. I mean, as a driver, they're not that fast. So they're not really utilizing the aero, and they're never reaching the level of the car, so they're never able to push harder. Whereas, you know, just keeping it low aero, just having a decent set of tires, brakes, that's really all you need to really have fun with a track car for the first, you know, year or 2 years.
I want to get my times consistent, because then I can tweak other variables and actually appreciate the differences.
All right, so thanks again, Robert, for letting me drive your BRZ. You know, this is the third one I've driven now, and it's the most fun to drive because it's the most balanced. It's the only one that doesn't have stock tires, so that's I mean, a lot of people say the stock tires make the car fun to drive. It's what gives it its, you know, playful character. But the Super Sports on this car still give it that character, just at a higher limit, which is good because now you have a lot more power to play with, so you can enter corners faster. That being said, I would still like to try a turbo BRZ someday, so if any of you guys have one, please let me know. Thanks for watching again. If you like my video, please subscribe to my channel, leave me any feedback, and I'll see you guys next time.